I've got a completely different presentation to make to you today, which is somewhat controversial. So let me emphasize right at the outset, I represent myself. I'm not representing any other body. And it comes as a back of 10 years in dog administration. But let me tell you a little bit more about myself personally, because without boring you, if you know a little bit more about me, you'll know a little bit more why I have a view of the dog world as I see it now, after 10 years on the side of dog world administration. So if you go back a very long time when I was really very young, I played rugby for England and spent many years playing rugby for a club called Bath, which was in the 1970s, the sort of the Bayern Munich of the rugby world, but it's a long time ago. And sport at that time was very important, and the two key phrases were collective responsibility, teamwork, and honesty and integrity. And if you couldn't work with those, then you were going to make no progress as a team. And in my working career, I worked in aerospace, as David said earlier on, and in aerospace, I ended up, and I don't know how I ended up doing it, but I ended up running one of the world's big aerospace companies with a huge turnover, and we were providing all the landing gear to Airbus and the Boeing organizations. And what was important about that? Collective responsibility, honesty, and integrity. And then, behind all that, the one thing I really am is a dog person. And here, you'll see our young dog, and for nearly 40 years we've had a kennel of Siberian Huskies. Some of you may never have seen this sort of Siberian Husky, but it's working dog, and we've averaged, I wish I'd managed to keep it at 2 or 3 dogs, but Pauline and I have a kennel of between 17 and 19 dogs for many years, and most of all, our time is our dogs. And now I'm not involved in canine administration as a dog person. Yesterday we flew in from Germany because we'd been in Germany judging. So 2 o'clock yesterday morning we get home. What do? I run my dogs. I walk my old dogs, and then we're ready. You know, I take the German wire-haired pointers out, and I always come back to dogs. Dogs are the important thing for me. And the administration, okay, is secondary. But let me tell you, over 10 years of dog administration, 80% of my time has been involved in people problems, people issues, and very little on purebred dogs. And that's the truth. Okay, so let me see if I can work this. It's an absolute pleasure to be here in Vilnius, and when I got the invitation in February to come, I was very quick to say to Diva, you know, I'm no longer chairman of the kennel club. And she came back and said, that's not a problem. So my talk today is more about the world at large in terms of dogs. We've talked about the background, and I just wanted to mention to you a little bit about organizational objectives. And Thomas referred to it a little bit earlier on when we were talking about purebred dogs. But if you actually go straight to and Google the various organizations, if you go to the internet, the FCI highlights its global status and membership, and then says, and this is the first thing it says, its responsibilities concern the mutual recognition of pedigrees and judges. And yet you actually have to go back and look into the background of the FCI and say its historical roots, to find that it was established in 1911 to promote and protect cynology and purebred dogs by any means it considers necessary. Okay? And I think I say that because I know how important it is, okay, that we keep those sorts of records up to date. If I look at the Kennel Club's website, the first thing it says is to ensure that dogs live happy, healthy lives. That's the first thing it says. The American Kennel Club, right up front, it says to be an advocate for the purebred dog. And what does it say on the Lithuanian one? Everybody's looking at everybody else. It says to encourage the breeding of good pedigree dogs. Well done. No, it's semi funny, okay? But what I'm saying is, when you've got a historical diary like you have on Wikipedia, it's got to be updated all the time. Otherwise, people aren't quite sure what you're trying to do. I've not searched all the websites, all those represented, but I do believe it's useful to occasionally revisit the origins of our various organizations to see if our actions today are truly aligned with the original intent of our organizations. Like many organizations, there is a tendency for canine bodies just to carry on with more of the same. But all successful organizations should review their strategy and their operational activities on an annual basis to ensure that the direction continues to be relevant. Do we all regularly review our direction in support of the promotion of pedigree dogs? And my experience is I don't believe we do. I think we are just driven along by today's people issues. When our forefathers established our canine clubs and bodies, what was their intent? As I understand it, it was all to do with the individuals exhibiting their pedigree dogs and proudly showing their stock in a, important word, friendly, competitive atmosphere, with the judges' decisions being accepted without query. And this is where I think the FCI have an excellent rule on the topic of judges, where it's absolutely unacceptable for judges to comment or criticize any other's decisions. And I think that a lot of people could learn from that. It leads to a very good atmosphere. The question I have to you today is, pedigree dogs, are they the beneficiaries or the victims of our hobby? So let me take you very quickly through some slides. Business, and I spent my whole life in business, is very, very simple. And it's very interesting what Thomas said earlier on. It's all about quality, cost, and delivery. It is that simple. You have customers. If you produce a good product, you produce it at an affordable price, and you give it to them when they want it, that's it. It is that simple. And you could apply that in many ways to the dog world. You really could. But, here we go. You have a range of outside influences, okay? The biggest issue, and I don't intend to say too much about it, but it is for you to think about, is in the top right-hand corner. Money. If you follow the course of money through the world of dogs, pedigree dogs, and dogs at large, it is not a positive influence. As I say, I don't intend to spend too much time on that. But society norms. Now, when I was a kid, you know, you had a couple, they got married, they bought a house, they had a child or two, and they had a dog. That is not today's norm, okay? Parents are busy, children have got games things and things do, you know, on telephones and everything else. They are not too interested in a dog. The cost of dog ownership is very, very different today than it was when I was a child. You know, very, very different. And costs are very significant. Local authorities, depending on the area in which you live, someone will always be coming and telling you what you can and can't do with your dog. Where you can walk it, where you can't walk it, how many you can own, etc., etc. Again, those are new features that we have to deal with. Press and the media, including social media. This is a subject I'm personally very conflicted over, because I think social media, if it is run proactively and vigorously by the organising bodies, and they are feeding out current news on a daily basis or a half-daily basis, I think that is absolutely perfect. And I think if the news is accurate and it provides a forum for people to talk about, that is perfect. To me, the printed word is historic, it's old, it's outdated, and frankly, in 10 years' time, in my opinion, apart from historical records of pictures of nice dogs and things like that, it will be irrelevant. But social media, if we had really good quality social media, that would resolve many, many problems. The work-life balance, well, you know, everybody's busy all of the time. You know, how many people these days have time to have, you know, a dog? They work hard all day, they go home, have they got time to take the dog for a walk? Then you've got all the regulators and other organizations, be they government or anything else. They're another big influencer. And finally, the whole issue of alternative attractions, all right? You know, there's so many other things we can do today because of transport, because of the availability of other options in term, you know, rather than dog ownership. So we are competing. The dog fraternity are competing for someone's time and their money against another alternative activity. And that wasn't the case in the past. Is this going to go or not? Yeah. Okay, so challenges. Capability, education and training. Because the FCI had this wonderful rule about judges not criticizing other judges, then you don't have the big furor that others do, where the first thing that happens when a judge makes their selection is that the best dog in the class, or what else is going on here, you know? So, but I think the whole issue of proactive capability can be addressed through enhanced education and training, be that in the world of breeding or judging or so many other things. The challenge here is for us to grasp the opportunity to enhance education and training. Pedigree versus non-pedigree dogs, I've owned both. We've had pedigree dogs in numbers for many years. I would not criticize non-pedigree dogs because, like so many other people, I provided a home for a non-pedigree dog. I didn't breed it, but it proved to be a wonderful companion. But it is a competitor to pedigree dogs. And of course, you've got the whole issue of designer dogs, which in my opinion is a passing phase. I think, like so many things, it's popular for a period of time, and like skateboarding was in the 1970s, people put their skateboard in the cupboard and forget about it. I hope they don't forget about their designer dog, but they won't be so popular. Then we've got this whole issue about the money trail. The world of dogs is, for some people, it's a bit like Sainsbury's or Tesco's. It's a cash machine. There's money coming in, show entries all the time, a huge amount of money. And just remember, 80 or 90% of the people who are pedigree dog owners, own one or two dogs and go every week to a show, they're the people who are funding our sport, and they're the people who we need to look after. I'll come back to that in a minute. There is an increasing need, whether we like it or not, for good governance and more professionalism in the administration of the world of dogs. It's unsatisfactory not to keep accurate records or not, really understand what's going on. In terms of data and the the collection, transfer and provision of data, that's a very, very important issue. So if as an organization a club develops into a significantly bigger organization, they need professionals within their operation to keep them online with the requirements of, or the increasing requirements of professionalism. Then we've got an interesting issue, and it certainly applies in some areas I've been involved, where you've got full-time staff who run clubs and organizations, and if you're running it full-time, you have a little bit of a clash with volunteers. Volunteers turn up and say, that's the way it should be. Hey, I'm running this organization. So a volunteer sees things very differently from someone who is responsible and paid to be responsible for running something. Clubs versus representative bodies, well, we all know breed clubs are very, very strong, very opinionated, but they often clash with the organizing bodies. Okay, now what I think are the threats here. I think there is a danger that individuals, a small group of individuals, drive things through self-interest. And I mean self-interest rather than the interest of pedigree dogs. Resistance to change. You can do nothing if you're not prepared to accept change. If you stay as you are, do nothing, and are a survivor, okay, you will have a big problem, okay? Of course, as I can bear witness, if you try to change things, people don't like it. So you have to make up your mind whether you're going to sit and do nothing or make a difference. Then you've got this group of people who are somewhat similar to individual self-interest. They are do anything competitors. They believe they should win every week. They operate as if they're going to win every week. They influence what's going on every week. And what they're doing is making our dog activity, our sport, very unattractive to new people coming into the sport. Okay? The first time I turned up with a dog at a show, well, I didn't turn up, my brother took my dog from me. But in 1981, okay, he turned up and he got a second or something like that. The person who turns up for the first time and sees and is not respected, is not encouraged, is not supported by the people who don't want to be threatened by a good-looking, well-bred pedigree dog, okay, that person won't come again. Negative press. It's easy to be critical. Easy to be critical. There was a publication fairly recently which didn't say anything about pedigree dogs until page 5. The first 4 pages were criticizing people. That's not useful. People don't enjoy reading that sort of stuff, you know, if they read it at all. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, on the subject of social media, a lot of that can be overcome by organizing bodies. All of you in here, as Pauline will tell you, I know nothing about social media, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But getting the truth out there on a regular basis all the time is going to be very positive. Then on the subject of insularity, and this is where Tamas and I and Carla and I have been working together for years and years and years. We work together. And you need to work together to go forward. There are people who believe the past is in the best. I'm going to live in my own little ivory castle. I don't want to have anything to do with anybody else because I know best. That is never going to resolve where the dog world is at the moment. Everybody should be meeting together in get-togethers like this on a regular basis, and that's going to be very positive. It all comes down to honesty, integrity at the end of the day. If you say something, you've got to do it. If the judge is giving the impression that, my next door neighbour's going to be winning because he's my next door neighbour, but then argues the case it was a better dog when clearly it's not a better dog, we're dead in the water. We are absolutely wasting our time. But be honest with yourself. At the end of the day, all you have as an individual is your honesty and integrity. The money chase, I'm not going to talk about money. Society's norms and behaviours I've talked about earlier on, about what how society copes with dogs going forward, as well as the pressures of work and alternatives. And the other one I wanted to talk about in particular is disappearing volunteers. Certainly in the UK, there are volunteers who get in a caravan in May and spend 3 or 4 months going around the shows, stewarding, and they just help and help and help. That generation is disappearing. And when that generation disappears, they're not going to be replaced. So we need to, anybody under or my age and over, we're not going to be replaced by people as stewards going forward unless we're careful. And then the other big threat is commercialization and sponsorship. I believe, if you go back to the days when the stockmen held their show and proudly showed their dog in front of someone else's dog, that took place in a field and cost nobody anything, I think when commercialization, overtakes the requirements of the pedigree dogs, I will, if anybody wants to talk to me at lunchtime about a particular example, I will gladly tell you about it. But I hate the fact that sponsorship takes a more important role than the actual dogs on the day. Okay, so the opportunities. Very quickly, we all know these. Young people, promotion, social media. The promotion of pedigree dogs, okay? If you take when we got together in London a couple of years ago, the American Kennel Club showed some videos, and Tamas will remember this. They actually produced some wonderful videos promoting pedigree dogs, and they're absolutely cracking. I didn't know how you could do it, but they've done it, and they're absolutely smashing. Dog people. If you're a dog person like myself, that's an opportunity. I will never, and Pauline will never, not be a dog person. And so working with dog people rather than with the people who are self-interested is an opportunity going forward. Education and training, we all know that's an opportunity. Cooperation rather than insularity and isolation, great opportunity. Dog health. But when I talk about dog health, I really believe that money should be focused on particular breed-specific health issues, not necessarily putting it into a big pot and not really knowing what comes out of it. If one sorts out some well-researched breed-specific problems, then that breed will be really, really grateful. I think you can do both, but I think that's important. Honesty, integrity, the feel-good factor. There is no doubt about it in our hobby that if people are feeling good about dogs, about life in general, they'll breed a litter. They won't hesitate but to breed a litter. We had 3 years of really fantastic growth in terms of registrations and transfers up until January last year, okay? Or January this year. This year, it's just plummeted, okay? I don't know why it's plummeted, but I do know that there isn't, at the moment, a feel-good factor. Young people, promotion social media. So let me move on. You can all understand those opportunities there. So, in summary, the future requires the promotion of pedigree dogs, promoting a feel-good factor, being prepared to accept change, investing in the exhibitor experience. Someone goes to a show, okay, rather than the organization, whoever's organizing, going away with a huge pot of money, invest that back into the exhibitor. You know, give them more products and services, which is going to make them really come back and really enjoy their day. Invest in dog health, we've talked about that. Invest in young people. Cooperation. Absolutely love cooperation. I even see like seeing Carla every year, twice a year. We cooperate on everything. She rings me. Invest in social media. Please, please invest in social media. It's really, really important. And dogs before commercialization. Honesty and integrity are absolutely the watchword of what we do. It's a very, very difficult thing. It pervades the dog world at large, okay? Like it doesn't pervade other things I've ever been involved with in terms of sport and large business organizations. Honesty, integrity. We can pretend it's not an issue, or we can behave differently. And collective responsibility. If you agree to do something, then do it, all right? Don't suddenly feel, oh God, I'm under pressure from Tamas. Tamas is saying, da, 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 da. Oh, I'm not going to agree to it now, and go and start talking to other people. Absolutely, you're in it together. Collective responsibility. And as Martin Luther King says, we must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. Thank you very much.